When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
I was speaking directly on AI and use cases for publishers, across the work. And they said, aren't you concerned about the ethics and the environmental impacts and the rest? And my answer remains the same. I said, 100% I am. But you know what I'm concerned about a lot more? Not having any local media reporting on things in our markets.
Yep.
I don't have the ability to stop hyperscalers from using too much water and from using too much power. I do have the power to fund journalism and make sure that people hold them accountable and sue them when they're stealing content and all these things that you need cash to be able to do.
This is Small Press Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. All right. My guest today on the podcast is Brian Kennett. He's the founder of Built Revenue, which we'll definitely get into in a minute. And according to his LinkedIn, he's spent 20 years on the commercial side of local media. I saw some really good posts from him come up on LinkedIn earlier this month. Reached out and here we are. Brian, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Kind of like most episodes, I'd love it if you could just, it's our first time meeting. If you could just tell myself and the audience a little bit about your background, your career, kind of give that story a little bit, set the stage.
Sure. Absolutely. So I got into this crazy business. Yeah, man, it's been 20 plus years ago. I was part of a pre-LinkedIn startup that was acquired by Deluxe that was aimed at helping connect founders of mostly tech companies at the time, and was really passionate about growing small business. And while I was at Deluxe, I started, really moving more into the paid search space and the local search space, and was pretty heavy there and was a VP of those solutions for them. And I met Kirk McDonald at the time, who was the CEO of Media News Group in the Denver Post. And through a series of conversations, got myself into the business and joined Media News Group, and then was part of the group that the handful of us that started Ad Taxi back in the day, which was one of the first, I think I would say one of the first publisher-owned agency businesses. And then I was a VP there and had the privilege of working in 100 plus markets around the country, launching solutions for them. Man, I've been addicted to it ever since, partly because of the pace and partly because of the impact that you can make and how critically important that I believe local media is. I saw it and still see it as an opportunity to fund something that desperately needs to be funded and doesn't naturally happen anymore, just with subscriptions and traffic. So I've been doing that. I did take a break from the business for a while. Former colleague of mine from Deluxe became chief marketing officer of a healthcare system in Iowa. And I went there to help fix local advertising and external comms, and just to move that company off of, it was a large healthcare system, 36 hospitals, 500 or 600 clinics, to move them off of traditional, mostly broadcast and outdoor media and onto a more digital approach. I loved it. I thought it was a great place to make an impact, but could not handle the slow pace I was so used to. And I've always been addicted to the lots and lots and lots of fast moving deadlines. So when I had the opportunity to come back to Minnesota, I did. And then I was at the Minnesota Star Tribune for 8 years, where I built their agency business, grew it into a very large, very profitable agency business. And it's kind of, and now I'm on my own doing something I think really exciting and trying to hopefully make a big impact or a bigger impact by working with more publishers and hopefully doing something cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's kind of when I picked up with your stuff on LinkedIn. That was kind of my next thing. Can you tell us a little bit about built revenue? I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's what you were hinting at there. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, over the last, well, I mean, for the last 10 years, probably plus, I've had a very strong belief that part of the problem that local publishers have, especially local publishers that aren't part of a major holding company or a big group, is that the systems are really hard and the amount of products and solutions and possibilities for teams is just massive. And it's hard to connect the dots. And if you don't connect the dots for sellers, they don't then connect them with their clients. So they either sell them the wrong products and they churn, or they give stuff away cheap and it's low margin, or like all these things happen and it becomes problematic. I've always believed that it's largely caused by just the complexity of the system and the fact that nobody builds stuff for local media companies like that. Like, it's just not something that, tech companies going to do. It's not in their best interest. Like Google and Facebook and others kind of want all that revenue for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had always been trying to find ways to do that in a more systematic way and to try to level the playing field so that the, you know, average sellers on my team and on others' teams were able to do things at the same level that our best could. And I just could never do it. Like, it didn't exist. I didn't have enough budget, couldn't figure it out. Tried to get partners to help build it. It was difficult because the partners don't have the same goal and they don't understand the business in the same way. And then, along came AI and
Mm-hmm.
the ability to start building on our own, or at least building prototypes that could really speak to explain to an engineer what you needed. So I started, really early when some of the tools started coming out. I started experimenting and building and had some early success and said, wow, like this is actually a way to do it, and went all in. And as I got further and further and further down the rabbit hole, I saw that not only could I do that, but we could do it really well and we could save a whole bunch of money. And if we could do both, it was an answer for how we could do things. How could we tie a customer needs assessment? A seller goes out in the field and they learn all this great information about a business. How can we help them really easily tie that to, here's the right way to solve for it, and here's why the local publisher's solution matters, and here's why print might still matter, and here's why local broadcast might still matter. It reaches the right audience and ties it together. So being able to do that was an unlock for me, and I spent lots and lots of time on it. So spoke at a few conferences, saw how much it resonated with all of the others, people that I knew in the industry, and everyone was like, holy cow, this is the right thing we've all been wanting. So, built revenue kind of came to be. It was, how can I help do that? So I'm really focused on a few things. One, trying to help them understand their business to see if there is an opportunity, if there's revenue that's leaking, if there's processes that are causing things to not work. I have a lot of experience doing that in my years as somebody who operated one of the larger publisher-owned agency businesses in the country. And then if there are opportunities, either partnering with them to teach them and help them and stand alongside them as they build it, or build it for them and give them the tools they need. So that's really what it's about.
Very cool. I like how you said that, like, people don't actually build things for local media. That hit home with me. That's what I try to do. I've also been kind of empowered by some of these cool AI tools and everything. I've always been technical enough to like break something basically, but now it's kind of leveled me up. And that's really interesting. And then how you said you spoke at some conferences and it resonated because kind of the stuff you were talking about, like and also tie that into the complexity of all the things out there they can plug in, and if you don't, it becomes a problem. So kind of bringing all that together, like what needs to be built for local media, or what needs to be brought together? Does this kind of tie into, I was going to ask you later, like the local media desk that you have put together there and everything? Can you talk about that a bit? Yeah.
So here's one of the problems. So every platform wants to sell you a tool that helps recommend the right products, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their goal is their product. So if you're a publisher, you've got all this inventory, or if you're a broadcaster, you've got all this inventory. They don't care about that, and they're not going to connect to it in a meaningful way. So a great example, publisher team, they learn how to sell audience-targeted inventory. The teams get all excited because they say, wow, I can sell just the right audience. And they go out. And I saw it all the time where they'd say, hey, we've identified the right audience are up, like high income, high net worth people that live in the metro area. They're highly educated. They're 35 to 55 years old. So I'm going to sell them programmatic display and connected TV. Hello, like that is the inventory of the local publisher in print and in digital, right? So you've got all this inventory that's at super high margin that you're now selling for pennies to Google so they can turn around and put it on exchange. And as a publisher, your team is selling clients inventory that you're either buying back from yourself or from other publishers because there's no, like, it's difficult. There's not, even though the same technology can work, like you can still audience target your own site, of course, but when you're buying that big buy, if your inventory isn't plumbed in, right at the front, and you can't move those levers, and certainly your print inventory isn't plumbed in. So how do you control that, and how do you make sure that when it makes sense that you're recommending the right products? I mean, that's one small example. There's hundreds of them, but none of the systems that the platforms build are ever going to focus on those types of things that matter to a publisher. So that's a big one. And then the other one is all the different platforms, I would argue intentionally, name things differently and have slightly different nuances to their products because they want to keep you in one ecosystem. Well, that sucks when you're a publisher because I've always said I don't want to be tied to one thing. I want to be able to leverage people and platforms against each other and negotiate hard and get the best deal for me and my clients. So, they don't talk and they're not easy, and your teams get confused. So they come back and they're like, wait a minute, the customer said they want to do this. It's really important that they increase traffic to their event. What's the right solution to sell them again? And how do I explain to them why that's the right thing? And when they get it wrong, which they do frequently, then the results are poor. And then the customers churn. And then the publisher says, oh my gosh, not only is it low margin, but they churn all the time. When in reality, you're just selling them all the wrong stuff. So those are the types of things. I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of nuances to it, but if you think about the systems that are built for media companies, they're largely not new, innovative tech. They're sometimes ancient, and they definitely aren't like designed to cross over all of that. So I think those are the biggest pieces, nor are sellers able to easily navigate it, or ops folks, trying to deliver on that. It's just
Yeah. Some of the tools are so complicated, and from publishers I talk to, they use like 10% of the functionality, or there's like stuff like that.
at most.
Also, you know what I mean? I'm like that with things I use. I had like a low. My company is me and like a couple freelancers, and like I had like a HubSpot account, and I was paying them for like 2 seats. And I was I'm like basically using a spreadsheet. I'm like, what is this? And then like I got Claude pilled. I just built my own thing. I'm like, I'm cutting you guys for free. This is ridiculous. And it does everything I needed it to do for like from a small, version of that. Yeah.
But now you're a publisher. Now take that on 10 systems where you're using 5 or 10%, and you're paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for software that you're using.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about AI, and kind of what some of the stuff you said was kind of hinting at it, but we didn't really talk about it directly. I'm guessing, you're a fan of the tools and stuff, just from what it's a huge spectrum. AI. A lot of folks I have on here are publishers, and they're like, well, I would never use AI because they think of a chatbot that people want to use to write content, and that's like that's scratching the surface. Do you think one of my kind of a thesis I've had recently is that, I think a lot of publishers are scared of AI because they kind of got decimated by the rise of the internet and this tech. And they're like, oh, here comes another wave to finish us off. And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's going to democratize things, make the kind of things you're talking about much more possible, and really help them kind of drive a wedge in with that moat that they have, which we can talk about later too.
Yeah.
So I'd just be curious your thoughts on AI. Would you say the stuff you're building is AI enabled or AI used, or just talk about that a little
100%.
bit.
It's 100%. I leverage it. And it's funny. I'm actually releasing a post on Monday, and I've got like 3 posts in a row coming up about AI because it's obviously it's the thing that everyone talks about. But
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking at the Minnesota Newspaper Association, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, something at their whenever their conference was, and a publisher asked me, and I was speaking directly on AI and use cases for publishers, across the org. And they said, "Aren't you concerned about the ethics and the environmental impacts and the rest?" And my answer remains the same. I said, 100% I am. 100% I'm concerned about it. But you know what I'm concerned about a lot more? Not having any local media reporting on things in our
Mm-hmm.
markets.
Yep.
And I'm much more concerned about that. And on balance, I think that I don't have the ability to stop hyperscalers from using too much water and from using too much power. I wish they would. I wish they'd figure it out. But I do have the power to fund journalism and make sure that people hold them accountable and sue them when they're stealing content and all these things that you need cash to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use the tools because on balance, I think the risk is a lot greater. And if we don't, and I have a lot more control over that. So yes, I will also say there's no way that I could afford to, either from just a budget standpoint or from a time standpoint, because things move so fast, build the types of tools that we need absent AI. That's why we were never able to do it before. So it's good. Now, I will also say, I think it has an appropriate use and some inappropriate uses. So I think AI does an incredible job at enabling reporters, at enabling sellers, at enabling executives, at all the different things. I don't think it is a replacement for necessarily. Like I think of some of the things that other companies have done and do, and I've seen some of the studies that have come out recently. AI articles were favored over human written, and that's not really what the studies say when you get into them. Like they never do. It's really good at gathering information, connecting dots, and enabling. So I think you use
Mm-hmm.
it for what it's really good at. Like we use it in my tools. I use it for connecting the dots, for making the recommendations, for doing those things, not for like all of the relationship
Mm-hmm.
work and the strategy and those types of things that needs human authorship. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big subject, but I think it's absolutely like, I think we have to do it. I just don't
Yeah.
see an option. And I live, right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. I've lived through, what I've seen and lived through here in the last while. I can't imagine a world without local media holding people accountable when really bad things happen. And I'm going to do whatever I can to try to fund that. And if that means using the tools, I'm going to use them.
Yep. It's important. And the tools are the thing. I talk to a lot of folks at publishers and stuff who are very go against the narrative that they're, it's an industry of Luddites or something. They're very tech enabled. They're using the tools. And then the people that aren't just haven't spent enough time with them, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So I had this kind of question written up. I've been loving your field notes. Once again, that's how I found you. Which I'll link to your site in the show notes if anybody wants to go
Thank you.
subscribe or check it out. It's kind of like a blog series, I guess, that you've kind of been doing posts with on your thoughts, kind of deeper dives there too. I was going through them this morning, and in your first kind of episode of the field notes, you said that a local publisher isn't a newspaper that sells ads. It's the most trusted audience. It's the most trusted audience in its market, and it monetizes almost none of what that's worth. Which I thought was a great line. That comes up a lot on this
True, yeah.
podcast. Yeah, that moat. I've been thinking a lot about that. That the local trust and everything is the moat that local media companies can leverage. So my question is kind of, what changes could a publisher make from what you've seen? Working at different places. Let's say a smaller indie, doesn't have those
Mhm.
resources or whatever. What changes could a publisher make to become more of an audience platform and not just a newspaper that sells ads? Yeah, if you could kind of read the tea leaves of the way you think that might evolve and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, and I think it's different for everyone. So let me back up. So I think what I mean by that, and there's a lot of things probably, but we have this great relationship with our clients because we've been around for a long time typically. We do the right things. We understand the market on a different level than typically a single business can. So if your market has a need, I think publishers are very well positioned to be able to provide that, monetize it, and make it better for the businesses they serve. So most of us as publishers, and again, like I said at the beginning, I was early in this and I still do it, we leaned into this advertising agency notion, saying, hey, we can actually handle the rest of your advertising because we've been driving customers to your business for 150 years. Like, we know how to do that. But that might look different in your market. It might mean, you know what? We've been managing business operations in this community for 150 years. We know how to do payroll. We know how to do, like, whatever it might be that businesses have a need for. Sell it, monetize it, commoditize it, turn it into something that you can actually make money on. You've got an audience that's loyal, that trusts you. You've got knowledge that other people don't have. Maybe it's PR, maybe it's events. I mean, damn, like, we've been producing events as media companies for a long time. A lot of other businesses have to produce events. Why are we not actively charging for that and doing things? Websites, we've been running like sophisticated websites as media companies, most of us, for a long time. Like, why do we not monetize that instead of carrying all that expense on our own? Use it. It benefits the business community around you, and you've got the trust to be able to do it. Those are some examples, but it's also things like insights. We know what drives the market. Tech companies, any type of business, property management companies, development companies, they spend a fortune coming in to try to understand the nuances of a market. Why are we not outselling that to them? Why are we not offering that to them and turning it into a product? We already have the information. We have the knowledge. And I don't mean you do that by compromising your newsroom. That's not what it's about. Like, we've always had separation between business. At least quality publishers have. You do it in the right way, but claim it, like, own it, leverage it, use it. Don't just think that all you can do is sell ink on paper or pixels on a screen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's necessary too. I've had some folks on this podcast that I put up a post recently. I'm like, local media publishers need to take a page out of Airbnb's playbook of using unused, like, literal physical inventory. I had two people on here, Max Cabot down in Marfa, Texas, and then a gentleman, I'm blanking on his name right now, from the Midcoast Villager up in Maine. So Max down in Texas, him and his wife bought the newspaper. It's a town of 2,000 people. They bought the old print shop and newspaper because people were retiring, and they took half that print shop, turned it into this like thriving event space. It's a cafe. They do events. It's a gallery. All that money is part of the same business, funds the journalism. Super cool. Same thing at the Midcoast Villager up in Maine. They had like a 2-story building that they owned. And they're like, well, we just need the top office these days. It's kind of declined from the heydays of local journalism. Downstairs, they put in a cafe. It's like a breakfast spot. And it is freaking thriving. And the pancakes look amazing on their website. And the people come in and they keep their ear to the street too and everything. Like, stuff like that.
That's cool.
I'm talking, so I do podcasts for local media companies. I am talking to a guy right now in Toledo, I think. I just had one call with them. They're building a podcast studio because they have an unused space because they want they're going to sell podcast ads and all this stuff, and he wanted advice on cameras and stuff like that and everything. And I was like, a few people have come to me in the last couple of years. I'm like, man, how often are you going to use it? He's like, I don't know, 5-6 shows a week, 5-6 hours. I was like, rent that podcast studio out, man. Like, you're right in a downtown hub. Like, put it up on Instagram, but build it real nice. Get some nice lighting, a couple buttons. Like, have people come in and record that for $100 an hour. Like, ideas like that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we had a video studio and a podcast studio that sat empty 90% of the time. Like, why would you not? Like, it's just such a great idea.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. I like all that.
Yeah. So anyway, I could go on for that for a while. Back to the local media desk real quick. You touched on it a bit. You call it a revenue operating system. Is it, you might have answered this and I might have missed it. Sorry. But is it like is this like a software solution? Is it kind of like a framework that you use when you work with folks? Could you talk about it a little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So again, everyone's different. So I don't think that I'm not in the software business and I don't want to be like, that's not really, 'cause I think that's the wrong idea. I think that we're all so different because again, like what works in, you know, your town in Montana is probably different than what works in, my town here. Like, so what that's more about is being able to model exactly how some of those tools can work. And then, I mean, there are some people though who, I've got a tiny team with 2 sellers, or something. I'm probably not going to build something out, or maybe even I've got to, I'm going to build it out. I've got a bigger team. I'm going to build it out, but it's going to take me longer, and I need something in the interim that can work. That's what it is. So it's just a tool that has those components in it that I've been building and iterate on constantly as I work with other people to say, hey, like, let's include some components of this so that we might repurpose it and reuse it. So it's a set of tools um, that I use as a basis. I'm not interested in, nor do I think it is the right solution for most people to just buy a piece of software on its own in 2026, because I think you're going to want to be able to pivot more, and I think you're going to want it more localized, or you're going to use 10% of it,
Yeah,
which
yeah, pretty much.
doesn't make much sense. So I think what that's really about is more being able to illustrate, showcase, and then use components and or for the short term, bridge gaps where it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's great stuff. Man, that's why I wanted to have you on. We great minds think alike, right? Or
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
It's
But
good stuff.
people used to get so mad at me, vendors, because everyone wants to do like 2-year contracts. I'm like, I'll do a 2-month contract. I don't even know what the world's going to be like in 2 years, man. I'm not going to sign a
Yeah,
contract.
that's
50
crazy.
seats or something. That's crazy.
Those like companies, like, man, they're in for a rough awakening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've traditionally been a podcast agency, and I built a software thing. It's a much more specific thing to use. And publishers always, every time I'm on like a sales call, like, what's the contract look like? I'm like, just hit cancel on the subscription button. We're done
Yeah.
at the end of the month. Like, I'm not going to hold you to something like that. I'm not going to tell you what your business needs or anything like that.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So that actually leads really well to kind of one of my questions I've been asking a lot lately when you talked about how fast things are changing. And this one's getting tougher from when I started asking it a year ago because of how fast things are changing. But basically, the question is, flash forward 5 years, where do you see the local media industry and maybe like the
Mm.
people that are thinking about this the right way, that making the right moves, and yourself too? Where do you see yourself in like 5 years? Be optimistic if everything goes to plan. And once again, this question is getting really hard to answer at the pace things are changing currently.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What I see for myself, it's always a hard question for me because I remember telling somebody when they started as as my new boss once. I said, I thrive on chaos. And if I don't have it, I'll probably find a way to make it. Because it's just the way I am. I love change, and I think it makes us all better. So, and I don't mean that for any more than it is. I think that I embrace it, and I think that normally on balance, it's good. So where I'll be in 5 years, man, I don't even know where I'll be in 5 months. I hope, that I'll be making an impact and that we'll continue to grow the business and find ways to do that. But I'm constantly open to, and have been most of my life, into saying I want to do something that feels really meaningful and has an impact and is rewarding and takes care of my family. I don't know where I'll be, but I know that I do know that I care a huge amount about, preserving local media, and where local media is in 5 years is much more concerning to me. I keep saying, and I know I write about it too much probably, but this cliff is right in front of us, and it pisses me off that some people can't see how close it is and they're not moving faster because it's accelerating. Like I see this cliff in front of us and I just feel like we're going faster and faster and faster and faster towards it. And some people are like, oh, what cliff? I don't know it's there. And that's a problem. So I really hope that everyone like gets their eyes wide open and realizes that we need to do stuff faster to solve for it and that we need to talk about it more. My gut says that the people who are making real movement in that direction are going to survive and be strong and great. And then there's still going to be some more thinning of people who don't. And that's too bad, but I just think it's unfortunately the reality just based on the way the movement is
hmm
happening. where tech goes in 5 years, man, oof, that's a scary thing in many
crazy.
ways.
Yeah.
Every time something new changes, it's like, well, I didn't think that was going to be true that fast. But I mean, Fable came out, and what had taken me like 3 weeks to work on before, I think I did in a night. I didn't even sleep that night. I'm like, this is crazy. And then it was gone.
I loved it for the 3 days I had it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. My wife didn't love it because I think I didn't leave my office for much. Yeah, so who knows where that'll be, but I'm encouraged and excited. I think that we've got like the ability to do things we never had. It's about figuring out how we still carve out the right space and that we do the right things. And yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged, in terms of where I'll be though, man, I don't know. If someone's got a great idea, they should tell me, but I'm still trying to figure it out. I just want to make a difference.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. It's funny, like with all this crazy AI capabilities, like I feel like I just got superpowers. The way I've been thinking about it is I'm like, man, I can do all this stuff. I can do all these things. And, you're still at the cutting edge right now. I'm like, that's a short-term play. I cannot see like an opaque wall like a year or two from now. I don't know how anything is going to play out at that point. So we'll see.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Like I was talking to an industry friend, Chris Prinos, who runs Indigo Trigger, and they do like implementation for publishers and systems and broadcasters. He runs a conference that I love. And we were talking about the conference, and like I was all in for 4 days helping him rebuild the back end of the website, because I'm like, we can match sponsors directly with what people want. We can produce speaker briefs based on what people say they want to learn. And like it doesn't have to stop here. So yeah, it's crazy. You go down rabbit holes, but who knows? We'll see.
Very cool. Awesome. Brian, this has been great, man. That's everything I had up there.
Yeah, that's great.
Where can people find you online? Like, what do you want me to link to in the show notes, or what do you want to promote? Yeah.
BuiltRevenue.com or my LinkedIn, I think, are both the best spots.
Okay.
I've got contact information there and scheduling. I love to talk to people. I love to debate with people who think I'm wrong. I really do. So I was a, high school, college debater. I coached debate forever. I'm on the board of the Urban Debate League. Like, I love it. I think that that's the best possible thing for us. So I welcome and encourage the discourse. I think that I think I said in one of the posts, it's not about being right. It's, it's about solving it. It's about getting it right. Lord knows, ask my wife or my kids. I'm not right all the time. So please, let's have the debate.
Awesome. Great stuff. I agree with you on most of this stuff, but I could point some people in your direction if you want that I've run into.
Yeah. I find them too. That's great. I love it. So,
all right.
Awesome.
Cool.
Hey, it was great talking.
Yeah. Thanks, man. You have a great day.
You too. Travel safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.